Welcome to a special edition of the AICPA Town Hall Series. We're thrilled to be with you today as we close out 2020. What a year it has been. So I'm Eric Auskerson, the CEO and president of the AICPA subsidiary CPA.com, and with me is Lisa Simpson, who leads firm services. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Well, we've had a busy final week here. We gave the last special edition update on December 23rd, right after the $900 billion relief bill was passed by Congress. And then, as you see here, there was a slight delay, discussions between the president and Congress, but President Trump did sign the bill, as we all know, on December 27th. So what we're showing to you here is a timeline slide. So it was December 21st when the bill was passed, went into law on the 27th. Today is December 30th. And this is how we see things right now. Things could always change, but as we look out to the start of January, we think that the forms and guidance will come out from Treasury and SBA over the first few days, Monday, January 4th to Wednesday, January 6th. And then the following week, January 11th through the 14th, is when we think this PPP2 could go live. So it's going to be a busy start to the year, and we've been through this before. So I think we're going to talk about how we really want to approach PPP2 differently than how we approached things back in April. Lisa, any comments?
I think it should help you to know that unlike PPP1, where, as Eric used to say, we were building the plane while it was in the air, this approach will expect to see that the Treasury and SBA will be issuing some of those key guidance areas before the loan applications start flowing. So that should help alleviate some of the confusion that marked the implementation of PPP1. So I think it's a good thing.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about how we're seeing the approach to PPP2 being different than this first phase. We've now been living with the Triple P program for the past 8 months. It's clearly it's a body of work which we understand. Back on April 3rd, when the PPP1 was stood up, there was clearly a lot of lack of understanding on what this program was all about. There was system issues with lenders in the SBA. Firms didn't have dedicated teams supporting it. Today, after doing this for the past 8 months, we have a very good understanding of the basic foundation of how the PPP program works. And we've put in place a number of capabilities that we definitely should be leveraging as we move to this next phase. We also think this is an opportunity to be more proactive. We think there were many businesses that were not supported necessarily by CPA firms in the first round. So we think there can be even more support from firms to these businesses that need this next round of funding. And we've been saying this throughout 2020. This has been a defining time for the profession, for the trusted advisor role that the firms play to their clients. And this is going to continue well into 2021, probably almost go into 2022. So we're going to start off the year focusing on these business relief activities. There's going to be a lot of business model reviews going on. And this clearly is a very important service line for your firm. And we know that we have many people that are on from business and industry, and everything we're saying here can help you better support your company. So Lisa?
Thanks. Last week, Eric and I did a pretty comprehensive look at a lot of the key provisions of the bill. Just to level set, we're not going to do that today. You can still access last week's recording via AICPA TV or YouTube. And we also have the presentation slides available on our site. So feel free to go back and watch that again if you missed it and you want to get into the details. I'm going to hit a few things very high level. And then again, on our January 7th town hall, we'll start digging into some of the areas once we've gotten the forms and guidance released from SBA. But I think what we want to talk about today is just making sure that you're getting ready, whether you're in a CPA firm or in a small business. And these are some of the steps that we've been talking about to help your firm get ready. So making sure that you're looking at who in your client base is going to meet that threshold for PPP2, the second draw. So what clients do you think have a 25% revenue decline in any quarter compared to 2019? Start those discussions with your clients to see if they are interested in a second draw, or if you have some clients who are newly eligible and didn't get into the first round, then start talking to them about it, gathering the documentation for PPP to first draw. You're going to need payroll amounts. And if you're going for the second draw, then you'll need payroll amounts and the revenue reduction documentation.
And Lisa, as we discussed over these, you have all the information you need to have these discussions right now. I know we all want the forms, we all want the next IFR, the next FAQ, but you don't need those to have a discussion on pretty much 90% of what you need to do from an advisory standpoint with your client, and then all those details will come out, shortly.
Absolutely. If you, so again, high level on some of the key provisions of the Consolidated Appropriations Act. No clever name for this one, unfortunately. But you've got the opportunity for second draw loans for those hardest hit borrowers. And you've got first draw borrowers who are maybe newly eligible or weren't able to get into the first round. We've already gotten some questions about that first bullet under the second draw loans around that 300 or fewer employee standard. And that 300 employee count will be the same as it was in the first round. So it's based on head count. And there are other caveats around affiliation standards and those kinds of things, but it will be implemented like it was for the first round, except now it's 300 instead of 500. We know that the gross receipts calculation is going to be an area of confusion, so we're waiting for the guidance from Treasury on exactly what's going to be included in gross receipts. Last week we mentioned that EIDL and PPP loans won't be included in gross receipts. We're looking to see how else that calculation will go, whether it's GAAP, cash accrual tax, whatever the basis is. And then you've got the details there on how to calculate the loan amount. For first draw borrowers, it'll be very similar to the last time. And you've got 501c6 organizations and news organizations subject to limitations.
And the thing is, we're going to assume positive intent. We've been speaking with Treasury and SBA, and the goal of rolling out PPP2 is to support businesses that need the relief. So even with that gross receipts, there's going to be all kinds of circumstances that need to have further discussions. For example, we've had one discussion where if a business merged with another business, how do you normalize it? All of that will be coming out in the coming weeks, but I think you can assume positive intent from the governmental officials as they roll this out, and that was similar to what we saw with PPP1.
That's a great point, Eric. Here are some of the other details that are included in the new provisions. I think key is that EIDL advances, as we discussed last week, will not impact forgiveness. That programming change has already been made in the SBI loan portal. So they will not be deducting advances from forgiveness. And there'll be some provisions about how to fix that retroactively. And also, as we've discussed last week, the expenses are now deductible for federal income tax purposes. So lots of good stuff in the PPP provisions. When it gets to forgiveness, it's going to be very similar, except we've got newly eligible costs that will qualify for forgiveness, and those can be maximized to get that 60-40 split between your payroll costs and non-payroll costs. There are some ERC provisions that are in the new legislation that are going to impact how you want to treat payroll in terms of PPP forgiveness. We'll be digging into those, analyzing that, and covering it in a future town hall session. ERC is going to be really complicated, so I'm sure we'll have some deeper dive webcasts as well. More good news is around simplified loan forgiveness for loans of 150,000 or less. So an easier process for those borrowers.
Yeah, and the ERC is going to be absolutely something that the firms are going to be talking to their clients about. It's going to be an opportunity in 21 and potentially an opportunity for some businesses in 2020 that didn't take it. So we'll, as you said, we'll be sharing a lot more around ERC strategies.
Yeah. We've been talking about agent fees since the beginning of the program, and I think it is important for firms to understand that clients can hire firms to support the PPP2 applications, and CPA firms can get those agent fees if there's an agreement with the lender. So that's the key point: is that the lender and the agent, the CPA firm, have to have an agreement on those fees. We went through a conversation about the fee structure last week, but we just wanted to remind you of what the lender fees and the agent fees are expected to look like.
And Lisa, remember, one of the top questions back in April of this year was, can you receive an agent fee and bill for advisory work? And the answer is yes. We got that answer a little bit late in April of this year, but we know that answer now going into PPP2. So you can both bill for advisory work as well as receive that agent fee.
Yeah. We've been talking with firms about how they're approaching getting ready for PPP2. And here are some of the key points that they've communicated out that we think are really helpful in just ensuring that you're ready to hit the ground running. And that's making sure that you've got buy-in, that you've got the team ready to support, that engagement letters are drafted, that you're leveraging our town hall slides to draft communications to your clients if you don't have a dedicated communications team, and that you've been touching base throughout the process with your clients and lenders, keeping those relationships warm. For me, I think one of the biggest opportunities for firms, and especially smaller firms, is to make sure that they've got lending options lined up if the traditional lending opportunities are not there. We know that was a challenge in the first round. So just making sure that you know what your options are to help your clients get the funding they need. So I mentioned engagement letters, and I wanted to just bring that issue up and go into it a little bit. We'll have additional resources available in the coming week or two, but it's always important when you're looking for an engagement letter, you're taking on a new advisory service or anything like that, make sure you contact your professional liability insurance carrier. They will often be able to provide you a templated letter. If you are anticipating being paid an agent fee, you want to make sure that's disclosed to your client in the engagement letter. And Eric and I have been talking about this. We will also be making sure that that functionality is built into the CPA loan portal to automate that process for those who are getting the agent fee through the portal. I wanted to point out some great resources that are being provided through the AICPA member insurance program. Aon and CNA are our partners in that program, and they produced a great risk alert back in April around providing services under PPP1. They are actively updating that currently, and I just encourage you that if you're an AICPA member in the professional liability insurance program, just make sure you're signed up for risk alerts, because you'll get that updated guidance and then the templated letter for PPP2. But you can go ahead and start working on those if you have clients that are ready to get engaged with you.
So thanks, Lisa. And this is a slide that we've shown before, but now we're adding one additional element of complexity, and that's the new, we got to get a name for it. We're calling it the $900 billion Stimulus Act right now, which is the second largest business relief act in the history of the United States, so pretty significant. But this here just shows you how much information goes into the programs that we'll be supporting to start, January of 2021 with, because this stimulus act is based on the foundation of the CARES PPP Act, and it adds to that. So there's all kinds of criteria, loan amount rules, application process rules. So this is where we've been discussing capabilities for the firm, and to really think about it differently, and to put in place guardrails uh, and tools that will make this more straightforward. So let's talk a little bit about that now. And we want to step back here and look at lending options first. When we launched the PPP program in early April, the only option was the traditional lender community, the banks and credit unions. But that was expanded over during the coming months. And by June, the SBA had authorized a number of fintech providers. So you really have two different groups here that can support the lending process for your clients. And if you really think about what's occurring, is the banks and these fintech companies are basically a front end for the SBA to distribute these business relief funds. So that's the community that you have at your disposal as an advisor, for your clients. And this is how we're seeing it right now. And we've just put this slide together. There's basically two paths for your clients that are going to receive a second PPP loan, a second draw. They are going to go to their original lender, or potentially, because there's some issue there, they're going to be looking for an alternative lender. And as a firm, what you need to think about is a centralized process to support these two different paths, because you're going to help your client go through the application process to determine that they're eligible, and then have that basically completed. And then you'll either work with them with their original lender, or, as we're saying, this path B, alternative lender. And what we've done over the past many months is we have established a capability for firms to have this path B option. And we think it makes a lot of sense for you to think about these two different paths, to think about what are the pros and cons. And when you look at this alternative path, it will give the firm more control with the process. And I've been speaking to firms every day this week, and I know a lot of firms are saying this makes a lot of sense to them, because they clearly say, some of my clients had a good experience with their lender. The original PPP lender, they're going to go back with them. Some of my other clients are looking for a different choice, and I want to be able to offer that to them. So, Lisa, any comments from you here?
What I appreciate about the approach is making sure that firms have a centralized process, that there are quality control and standardization around what's going on within the firm, so that there's consistency and accuracy, and the tools and resources can help drive that consistency.
Right. And that's what we're saying right here, the centralized firm process. And what we're hoping is that, hundreds of firms don't start all building calculators, because that's probably not the best use of your time. I even heard firms that had, different partners building their own calculator. There's a better way to do this for this round. And this is one of the options. So we've put this capability in place. I think you've all heard about this in previous town halls. You can go to CPA Loan Portal to find out more information on it. There is a basic version which is free. If you're in business and industry, you can leverage this for your company, and this will support the lender agreement and agent fees, if that's something that you're interested in from your overall firm business model standpoint. We will be having a demo on this later today, but I'll just kind of cover a couple of the key value drivers. as I said, this is just a front end into the SBA. So this, we think this is a very user-friendly process, where you can have different permissions for different users in your firm. It's going to, we think, be a very expeditious path to receiving the SBA E-Tran numbers to file these new applications into the SBA systems. It's secure, and you're working with one of the approved fintech providers. So if you're interested to learn more about that, as I said, there'll be a webinar later today, which we'll also be recording. And here is, this is a very detailed chart, but what you see here is that, what Lisa said, this centralized process. If you look to the left here, all of this in the gray, you can do all of this in this application and then download that file and go path A to the existing lender, or say you're going to go path B and file it directly into the SBA with what's on the right hand side here in green. So that this is, you can do the application, get the client's affirmations, e-signature, download that file, use it to kind of work with your client and their existing lender, or offer this alternative approach, which you can directly support. So this is the webinar that's coming up later today, which will be recorded from 3 to 4 p.m. And we'll continue to be doing onboarding webinars, providing more information on these capabilities that we've been working for the past 6 months on to get ready for this next phase.
Eric, one of the points about the portal, the PCPS team who's been building all of the resources that you find at aicpa.org SBA is actively working with Biz2Credit and CPA.com to integrate our guidance and resources into the platform. And we'll be doing that for the second journey of PPP as well. So been focused on forgiveness up until the new legislation came out, and now we're building our guidance into the loan application journey as well.
Well, Lisa, you've got a great team, and I know there'll be a lot of self-help videos being put out by Brad Barber and Carrie Hisback and others. And I think this is just excellent that we're integrating the PCPS recommendations and guidance into a fintech platform, and just enabling small firms and large firms of all sizes to be proactive, to be progressive, and to work in a different way than we did when this all came out back in April.
Okay.
So this is another discussion that we've been having with many firms, is just providing broader community support. This relief program is something that we want to make sure is provided to all businesses that need it with this platform, and even with some of the lender and agent fees that are coming out in this next round. We think there will be more focus on supporting these smaller businesses that might not have had a firm supporting them back in the spring, or a lender supporting them. So Lisa, any additional comments on this?
It's just a great opportunity to get others in your firm involved in making a difference in the community. So you may be tied up for the next few weeks working on loan applications, but there might be others in your firm that are looking for ways to help. And this is one way that you do that. There will be targeted funds within the appropriation for underserved communities and micro employers. So this is, there will be money set aside to help fund those operations.
So more to come on that. Here's the PCPS Resource Center. Everything's being updated. Lisa?
Yeah, let me jump in real quick. We are actively updating the FAQs and the payroll loan amount calculator. The FAQs are getting a little complicated because you've got several different options now. So we're just trying to work through those and get you some good, clear answers. The payroll loan calculators are going through a QA process as we speak, and we should have that up on our site by the end of the week. As a reminder for the slides today, We'll also have those on the aicpa.org/SBA site. Give us about 24 hours to get those uploaded, but you'll be able to access these slides on our site as well.
Thanks. So here, and we're all staying active. It's been a very active period. So leveraging LinkedIn and Twitter and social media to support the communication around what's happening. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to watch and discuss what's happening with SBA and Treasury related to the additional guidance in those forms that we think will come out in the first week in January. So this is a good way for you to stay connected. So that brings us to the final slide, the final town hall slide of 2020. We will be kicking off the new year with a town hall on January 7th at 3 p.m. We continue to do the auto registration for you. We most likely will have a town hall the second week. We're going to be entering what we call our sprint weeks, where there's a lot of information, and we will be talking about things on our town halls that are broader than just Triple P. We'll be talking about ERC, other business relief activities. We'll be talking about some tax updates related to 2020 tax filings. So a lot more than just the business relief PPP program, but clearly that will be a focus for us as we start the year. You can stay in touch with us on LinkedIn and Twitter, as I just mentioned. It's been an amazing year, a defining year. We've appreciated your engagement. So thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you. And I think from all of us here at the AICPA and CPA.com, we wish you all a great new year.
Happy New Year, everyone.